Hi guys, this is Scott ROCKNAK. I'm aboard the HH55 Utopia, and welcome everyone, and hi to the folks in Europe. I know it's getting kind of late, and good morning to Australia. Hi Gary, hi Nick in England. Okay, so this is our second version of the live video today, and hopefully a little bit less shaking with the camera. I have something to steady it with, and now it's getting a little dark here, so we'll get to see what the lights are like on. So I'm going to flip the camera around again, and we're going to go forward just to go over the forward deck. And anyone that's watching, go ahead and ask questions, because now I can see them on the screen. So we're going to walk up here. Once again, some of you might have seen this morning, but if you haven't, I'm going to repeat some things. Okay, we're on a Dyneema trampoline here, and I'm going to show my feet. It's a very steady tramp. It's not a very spongy setup. It's all soft to the touch with bare feet. But I just want to show you, while we have some light, some of the lockers and things aboard the boat. Okay, I'll point out the differences with the Ocean series. I'm going to lift up the hatch here just to show you what's inside. Starboard hatch has the two shorter dagger boards that give the boat it reduces the draft from 6 feet to 4 feet. So that's great for the Bahamas, and they can also act as emergency rudders. One person can lift them, and one person, well, it takes one or two to change them, about 45 minutes per rudder, and when you get good at it, about an hour for both. But that's quite cavernous. That's almost 7 feet tall in there, and you could put the sails on the other side and put your bicycles in there if you'd like. So one of the earlier questions were, you know, what's the difference between an OC and an HH? This boat has the same hatches as an OC. So if you get one of the new 56s that we're developing in OC, or the OC50, it'll have a hatch similar to this, not quite as big on the 50. While we're up here, the hatch that is not translucent like these is the generator hatch. And I just want to show you that too. It's also quite large. You can get down in there, and there's a Fisher Panda in there. I think it's about 10 kW. It's all lit up. It has its own lights, has its own battery. It's one of the few things on the boat that's 12 volt. Everything else is 24. Then over here is the anchor locker, or the chain locker really. And what we have, these are all inflatable fenders. All the fenders will fit in here inflated. But there's like a V3, I think it's a V3, windlass with stainless chain, but the chain is all underneath it. It's behind that little gap right there. It's all in there. So the chain stays away from the rest of the locker. This locker has a drain. So it's easy to get these fenders out. They're very light, and you don't have to store them there if you don't want to. The other locker is all empty, and it has a hookah in there for servicing the boat, but you could put a scuba compressor. A Brownie will fit in there, and I think a Bauer will too. Okay, then the question is, if I wanted to add DirecTV and internet, where would they go? So DirecTV has two choices. We could either put it on the spreader opposite of the radar, or we could do a pole off the back. If you want to do a wind machine, we can put the pole there. So that's one of the options for DirecTV, and that's available from a bunch of vendors and can be retrofitted on this boat. So as we go aft, I wanted to show you these stanchions here. I'm going to switch the camera. I want you to see how tall they are. So they go almost up to my belt. So they're pretty tall. They're about one size taller than most, and they have three lifelines, and the lifelines are all a Dyneema or Spectre with a cover. And this longeron is carbon. This is carbon fiber. The boom, which is a Park Avenue boom, and the mast are all carbon fiber. And one of the things we talked about this morning was roller furler, another roller furler, and continuous furler up here. That's for the reacher and spinnaker. That's the Solent, and that stays on there because that's a forestay. And then we have the staysail here, and they are all adjusted by running a line as a downhaul back here, and you attach a line from here to the Pontos winch. And this winch is a 4-speed winch. And you really need 3 or 4 speeds on this boat to be able to pull that back, because when you pull them back, they lock in place here, and that's how that works. You can see the tramp lights. There's LED tramp lights here. And while we're up here and we have light, we have ventilation in the middle, there, and there. And they work pretty well. And you'll see this thing here and wonder what it is. This is for the Spinnaker. This release goes aft, and that's to just lock it. If you look at this, you'll say, what are these red handles? Well, those are for the locks. This setup is to lock the main at the reefs or at the head of the mast, the top of the mast, so the tension is not on the halyard. It's a smaller halyard. So you can raise the sail up, and then you pull the line to open up the lock, and it accepts it. So you pull the sail past it, and then you pull this, and it clamps it. And you can take a line like this and run it through that sheave right there, and you can do all that from the cockpit. So to single hand this boat, you can raise your main up and activate the lock from the cockpit. Now on the OCs that we were talking about earlier, that would probably be a standard line, and it's up to you if you want to just have a standard main halyard. This would be a lot bigger, but this is smaller because there's no tension on it. It just pulls the sail up and locks. And while we're here, I just wanted to show you all your lines on all the HHs that are like this, the 50s and the 55s. The lines all fit in the bag, and there's a bag underneath here that accepts it. And depending on what line you want to use, they're separated into little cubby holes. But it leaves room. You can see the full instrumentation. That's part of your control here for manual control in case you don't want to use touchscreen. Your tachometers are here. Your start and stop on both sides of the boat have both of these. So there's 4 of them on board. You also have a bow thruster control. There's a bow thruster in the starboard side. This is the same on the other boats. On the starboard side only is the chain counter and the manual control for the Lumar winch up forward for the anchor, but there's a remote control for that, and I'll show it when we go inside. These are electronic, and you just push the button when you're near it, and that one will work. You don't have to turn one off and go turn on the other. It's simply just when you're there, you can hit it. The question is, the Martingale Longeron looked to be one very pretty carbon piece. Has the look and style changed, I think, on the OC? Let's just take a look at that real quick. On the carbon setup on this is not unlike the one on the 50, and the OC50 can get this as an option, but if you get the standard OCs, they're aluminum, like some of the other boats you've seen. The only difference is on the 50, this whole thing is one piece of carbon. On this boat, there's 2 pieces. You have the cross beam and you have the longeron as 2, but on the smaller 50s, they're 1. And the first 50 that's in the water that's now in Barcelona, you'll see pictures of it. That has a 1-piece carbon setup. He ordered that. He didn't get the aluminum. The wheel here is a carbon as well. Now these winches here, they're 2-speed 70s, and they're 50s on the 50. But this boat has the upgrade. He upgraded to the 70s, and they're 2 speeds, and they're controlled here on the floor, so you don't have to use your hands, with a button and you're trying to grab the lines. It's all done with your feet. Now, if you had an issue and you had a cross wrap and the thing is it's taking off, or you get your hand caught in there, any of these buttons throughout the boat will kill every single winch on the boat. And that includes the line drivers and all the winches. And since we're talking about winches, the reacher winches are down here, and they are 73 speed. So the way you tell if it's a 3-speed is it has this right here, and you push that down, and then you have the switches, and one of them becomes 1 gear, 2, it becomes the 3rd gear as opposed to 1st and 2nd. Now the reacher winches are used for the Spinnakers, but if you were single-handing or you were short-handing or just needed to do it, you could take your line from your reacher, come back here, and that's a code 0, by the way, on this boat. That comes with it. It's north. And you can run it to here. So then you're going to say, well, what do I do with my main sheet? Well, your main sheet's on both sides of the boat, but you can cross sheet it over to the other one. You can still make that angle, but you're not going to play with the main sheet much when you're playing with the reacher. And speaking of the reacher, this little thing right here allows you to run the reacher through that to bring it a little closer. It's almost like a barber hauler. It's not really a barber hauler, but it's like it. This is the barber hauler, and that's used for the sullen. The staysail, and this is the same on the OCs, is a curved piece with a drain in it in case water gets in there. And that curve keeps the tension in the staysail when you tack. And by the way, there are no turnbuckles on this boat, but there are turnbuckles on the OC. So on this boat, you have G10 right there. And those wedges are put in after you open this up. There's a hose that comes out, and you have a pump on the floor that raises the mast up. And you do that because there are no turnbuckles on this boat. It's a performance boat. And you have standard preset lengths here. So you use the mast to tension the rig. And while we're looking at the top here, this top's the same on all the boats, but on Utopia we have 1.5 kilowatts. And all today, it's a cloudy day. You can see the clouds here in Camden, Maine. Can't even see the mountain. Well, you can see the mountain there. We actually generated power all day, even in the clouds, even with 1.5 kW. And I say 1.5, that's a lot more than most boats, but you could easily put 2 on this roof. You can add to this boat too if you wanted to. Now there's another way to get down the steps. That cushion disappears, and I won't walk on it, but I'm going to show you. And this is the same. You have an option on all these boats, but on Utopia, it comes with this double setup here. And you can take this cushion, pull it out, take that one out, and you have a clear step. And that's how you get up. And at nighttime, that's what we do. We don't use the aft steps at night, even though there's a tailgate that fits in this groove here. So these, if you want to get rid of them, can actually go inside the boat. And there's space up here to put them. Now you just push it to the side, it goes way to the side. So that's what that's for. Now, I'll go into the interior in just a minute, but I'll just finish with the cockpit here. The boat has a grill. The 55 has a grill here, if you want. Remember, these boats are all custom, and he did a really good job designing this one. Big sink, and there's an ice maker here. And this is the line driver for the Traveler. And the Traveler is controlled, I'll go up this way this time. Here, on both sides of the boat. So if I push this button, you can see what happens. So that's all on both sides. These buttons are the dagger boards, which also have a line driver. So I'm going to go down. See that? And the way that works is the line driver's forward of the dagger board here, and there's an up and down. The line works going up and down. It pulls it in either direction, and then you have your depth, max depth, and then the minimum depth. Of course, we just changed that, but because we put the board down. And just quickly on the transom, you can see how big the transom is. This boat has real teak. The difference between real teak and flexi-teak is real teak you have to maintain. This boat is not oiled, it's just cleaned, but it's a lot warm. It's a lot cooler to the foot than flexi-teak is. That's your emergency steerer right there. And since we're here, let's take a look at the engine room. So the boat has twin 57 horsepower Yanmars on a sail drive. The engines are in reverse. So there's the sail drive on the forward part. And I just want to show you when we looked at this morning, but there's your rudder. And that stock right there allows you to have the ability to pull the rudder out when the boat is in the water to change them out. So there's two things that can be done in the water here. You can change your rudders, and you can change your oil in the sail drive. So the boat really doesn't have to come out of the water except for bottom paint. Now we'll go inside. We'll look at this table. This is actually real teak veneer. The boat is all real wood inside. This particular table stays up, so there's a little bit of a lounge seat there. And then underneath of this one, life raft is here, storage is here, propane is there. There's 2 bottles. And there's another bottle under here for the grill. And then we go inside, and I'll show you how the doors work when we get out. But looking at tables again, this table is adjustable, so you can have that be a berth if you want. And there's a cushion for it, and then he throws a blanket, that blanket on top of it, so you can put items that you're working with or whatever on top of it. It's down most of the time actually, and that little crank is what makes it work. Another quick question here: any significant difference between the helm stations? Yes, it's, if you want to call it significant. All your forward sails are controlled from both sides. But the thing that's not on both sides is your main halyard and your reefs are only on the starboard side. So you come over here to raise your main and do your reefs, and your anchor is here, but you could probably repeat that to the other side. The other side of the boat, the big difference is that your spinnaker goes up on this side of the boat. So let's look at that. So you have a spinnaker halyard here. There's a reacher halyard here too. And the reason that they're separated from the main, and one of the reasons is you can see the lock for the spinnaker up forward. So spinnaker on this side and main halyard on the other side, but your sheets are all on both sides. Now the way the spinnaker works too is there's a release, and what that is a bullet block. And that, it's also the same thing as the main, where it locks at the top. So when you look at this boat, you'll see this is actually the bullet blocks on the other side, but here's your halyards. I think that's a staysail. No, that's the spinnaker halyard's on the other side. This is the reacher halyard. So let's look at that. This one is a little easier to see. Oh, by the way, they are wrapped around the halyards, and the reason you do that is it breaks the vortex here so it doesn't howl. So you don't hear it at night. You know how you hear that noise? Well, you don't get that when you wrap the halyard around it. So, okay, this is the, I believe that's for the, that is for the spinnaker. The other side is the reacher, I believe, and I'll correct that in the comments if that's wrong. Okay. So going inside here, we'll start with the navigation station. The nav station on this boat is big enough to take a laptop. The laptop comes with the boat. It's a PC that allows you to control the master vault system and some other things on board, and you can have navigation software there. The new Macs that are coming out will not be able to easily run PC software, so it's good to have that. That's an i5. It's got a terabyte. Then this little, well, it's actually the big iPad comes with the boat as well. But here's our third B&G here, and then we have our load sensors. The load sensors are attached to the cap shrouds, and when those reach about number 5, that starts to tell you when you're overpowered. And when they approach 8, that means you're going to be flying a hull. So this boat, basically, the flying a hull means that you can see the outdrive for a while. You try not to raise it up really high in the air. You can, but you don't. Here's your water maker, your Fisher Panda. This is a manual control, and you can use it for your autopilot. This is your C-zone system, and this basically has the ability to have multiple modes or monitoring. You can see how much juicer you're using. You can see what's been turned on and what it's using for power. You can also control and turn on anything that's electrical can be turned on. And you also have the ability with this boat to have different modes where you can say, the boat, I'm sailing the boat, and it turns on just what you want. This Fusion here is not only a stereo, but it can play video. And the video goes here to the TV, and that has a lift. And that gives you an idea. And it has a lip here to protect anything from the galley getting into the TV area. The galley has a trash can that you can access from the cockpit, but you can also just throw things in here. So that's nice. But speaking of that, when the doors are closed, or when the doors are all the way open, you can see the whole salon is exposed to the cockpit. There are sliders here, and they sit on this side of the boat. But you still have a place to put hors d'oeuvres or things like that people can reach from the cockpit. This boat has a shelf over the microwave and a storage, and these glasses don't move. They stay there all the time, even on deliveries. They'll just stay right there. The fishing poles have a place to live here. The fishing poles don't come with the boat. He's going to take them to another boat, but that's a good place for them if you want to keep them locked away. And it's a 4-burner stove and oven, and it has pretty big drawers here. Now again, these things that I'm showing you were all, it's probably you, Nick, that's asking the question, I can't remember, but the OC has all this as well. That's a big cavernous locker there, and behind the locker, way back there underneath, there's a plastic shield, and that's the manual override for the C-zone. For this part, you can actually override the C-zone if you needed to. There are 2 fridges and 2 freezers, and they're pretty straightforward. And they work well. And they use about 3 amps when they're on at 24 volts. This locker here is mostly for dry goods. And the way that it works on Utopia is he's got his dishes in here. And then these are just other storage like spices and things. But pot and pan storage is here. That's nice. And then there's a wine locker in the middle underneath the cushion. And one of the really cool things on the boat in the galley is it has a Lazy Susan here. And it's a kidney-shaped Lazy Susan. So it's a good, efficient use of space. There's 2 of them, you can see. And it's heavy duty. This is a filter tap here for fresh water, and you can have that be all the water, or just, on this boat, it's just drinking water. The L-shaped settee is one of the places you can sit and face aft, and that's a good setup to have because you can also sit aft and look out past to see what's going on. You put pillows up against the window, and that works great. And when you have this door closed, you can do it here too. So that's comfortable. Now there's air conditioning on the boat, and that's what these vents are here. And every cabin has at least one. The salon has 2. So they have decent air conditioners. This boat is set up as a 4-cabin boat because of carrying a lot of families on board. And this is set up, all these boats have, doesn't matter if it's the HH55 like Utopia or the HH50 or the OC, they have this picture window. There's slightly different shapes on the smaller boats, but Utopia has the rectangular shaped one. And it's a queen bed, and there's shelves on the side, and there's a locker here. Now I'm on the port side. The port side actually has a little bit more storage in this locker than the other side because of the tech cabinet. So this is considered the master cabin. And there's also, again, this is all real teak veneer and all solid teak trim. Drawers, hanging locker, you can see what you would expect. And then this is, there are 4 heads on board with 2 showers. And these are Planus heads, and they're very quiet. And I showed this morning how loud they were. So I'm just going to hit this one. You have two settings here, and I'm just going to hit this one. So that's all it does. So it doesn't wake up the boat. And Planus is one of the better head manufacturers that you can buy. Here's the Jack and Jill shower, and it's plenty big enough. And there's an opening port in all the heads and all the showers. Now, on the 55, like Utopia, you have a large counter space, and you have a locker here. And remember, anything that has a window has a shade. No matter where it is in the boat, it has a shade. And if it opens, it has a screen available. There's also storage underneath there. And inside the shower, they have soap storage. So moving forward, you have not quite a queen. It's sort of between a full and a queen, but it's comfortable for two. And I slept in every berth in this boat pretty much, and it's a very comfortable boat in any of it. I like every single cabin that's in it. So again, there's a shade here, lots of light, good ventilation, and the aft cabin has very good ventilation. This is the tech locker here. It's the port side has all the tech, and I'm just going to go inside this a little bit. And I have a system video on YouTube that you can go to. And what I'm going to do is turn on the light and just quickly show this. I don't think I really did this with video on the systems video. Those are 3 Mastervolt 180 24 volts, and there's room for another one right there. This works fine for the boat, but you can add a 4th. That's an auto transformer, and that splits the 2 phases into 110 and 220. And then we have all very well marked fuses and remote control switches for the winches. And that is the inverter. It's a 5 kW inverter. Now, for the folks in the Pacific and the Europeans that are looking at this now, is we can put a isolation transformer aft in this boat, and you can make this boat universal. You'll have 110 outlets inside, but we could also put in a few 50 hertz 230 or 220. Now, the forward cabins actually have very good storage. Now, when I open this, it's filled with, that's a drone in a big bag there. And in here is all my computer stuff that I have. I just put it in here to get out of the way, but you can see how deep it is. I'll stick my hand in. That's pretty deep. And the other big lockers, there's a small shallow locker underneath. But there's a drawer here, and then underneath of the berth, this is all open. See the Tupperware cases? So you can put probably 6 of them in there. So there's nothing under there. There's a hot water heater, but it's not a big deal. And then here is some hanging pieces that he added for clothes. And this looks better in my new coming video up because it's a wide angle, but that's the daggerboard trunk. But you can see it doesn't take any of the cabin up. So folks will say, oh, it has daggerboard. It's going to take up most of the cabin. Well, it doesn't. They're outboard. So this is a Gino Morelli and Pete Melvin designed boat. And the Morelli and Melvin team did a really good job with these C-shaped boards that are on the outside. This is essentially a storage on the top, but it actually is where your rake oars are. So there's 2 rake oars with a transfer pump and a fuel polishing system. And underneath of there are the fuel tanks. 1 fuel tank per side with a big clean out. And then over here is your escape hatch. And the escape hatch has a tether on it so you don't lose it. And underneath the boat, you have the ability to put jack lines. So you can have jack lines on top and the bottom of the boat. Preferably you never use the ones on the bottom of the boat. And there's your floor lights and courtesy lights. And keep in mind too that with the lights on this boat, they are all dimmable. So you could hit the dim switch here and you probably can't tell, but those have just been lowered. So you can get a really low profile lighting in here. There's more electrical underneath of here. It's very well thought out. And there's drawer space here. This is where all your B&G computers are. Very easy to get to. There's a goodie shelf there. This is a pretty big locker here. And again, when I'm on board and I'm editing videos, if I'm not standing, I'm putting my computer here. And I have a Mac, and my Mac fits anywhere in here, including here if I wanted to. So there's a lot of place for computers. But, you know, frankly, when I'm on board these boats and doing deliveries and doing videos that you see on YouTube, I'm actually here. See? Now, if you said, I want to add a washer and dryer, well, you can. This boat doesn't have one, but they're easy to put in, and it goes here. I'll back up. So this boat has two lockers on this side because it doesn't have a tech cabinet. So you can put the washer and dryer in here. He elected not to have one, but you could add one. This boat has storage here, here, underneath the berth like we showed before. And the lights, by the way, on every boat, every berth in this boat, you can turn off the lights when you're in the bed. Now I'm going to back up here so you can see this. One of the advantages of this boat is the mast is fairly far forward, so the salon has a lot of room in it. I'll walk sideways. A lot of boats that you're looking at that are in the side stop right here. But these will go further. And not only does it just doesn't really stop here because the track allows the doors to be completely opened. It allows the salon to become the cockpit and the cockpit to become the salon. So I'm going to see if I give a wide angle view. See that? So if you ask, well, where do I put my screen because I'm in the Mediterranean and I want to have the bugs stay away? Well, what you do is you have one screen for the door. So you slide a door to the stop that's here, and you put two more doors over there, and you have a normal entryway, and you put your screen in the gully here. And that will store over there, and then you can have your screen slide too. And that can be done on this boat. Since we still have a little bit of light, the davits, these are the asymmetrical davits. And this one, it takes the 14-foot rib that's on the boat, and they're designed to take it's a 14-foot rib, not unlike the one that's way over there. It's a center console. It's allowed to take the rib, but it also can take the weight of the water that's inside of the rib if you left the plug in. Now you try not to do that, it's too heavy, but this will take it. And if you look at the lines on here, there's single lines. There's no bridles. It just attaches to a piece on the floor in the center and it pulls it right up. And the reason these little nubs are here like this is it hits the tubes and squishes it so the dinghy doesn't go back and forth. And you'll see that on my 50 video how that works. One of the things I pointed out this morning is on the transom, there are 2 man overboards on Utopia. That's because the time it takes for you to run from one side of the boat to the other is quite a while. So if you're on the side this person that you're standing when someone falls overboard, you pull that top handle and there's weights right there and the whole thing drops in the water with the man overboard system. And since we're looking at the transom, let's take a look at the bridge deck clearance. It's pretty decent. And my upcoming video showing the boat sailing shows what that looks like underway. And while we're looking at it, there are pad eyes here that can be used for cross tying at a dock or potentially putting a bridle on there to tow a dinghy if you had to. The cleats on the boat, by the way, they're fore and after like this. And there's your controls. Can you give us insights on what the OC56 might look like? Yes. If you want the OC56 to look like this, you can get one that looks like this. They're still doing some additional work with the engineering and design on it, but what's going to change is the boat's going to be longer. So this platform right here will be longer. So this boat, Utopia, is set up for performance with all carbon boat with carbon fiber rigging, high-tech rigging, and so forth. On the OCs, those are generally optional, and you go with aluminum. Just contact me, and I'll send you the spec sheet when the guys get finished with it. So, and there's 2 ways to do this, but on Utopia, this all removes. He wanted to be able to remove, and he has a soft top, but even on Utopia, if you wanted to put a hard piece in there, you could. The floor in this is Antico, and that is a very, very tough, high quality material, and it's repairable if you had to repair it. So do we have any questions at all? Because I can answer specific questions if you have any more on the boat. I think we covered quite a bit rather quickly, but I can go into any kind of questions that you may want to have. I think I've covered everything. Let's see. Thanks. Likes the videos. Good. Thank you. There's another one coming out. It's actually, I'm trying to edit it now. It's an hour and 46 minutes long. It's sailing this boat and all the stuff that goes into sailing it. I'm going to try to bring it down to about 35 minutes. So look for that coming up soon. And I have some other videos coming up on the 50 series. Where's the location of the water maker? Good question. All right, so let's look at that. That is a Spectra 700, and I'm just going to flip the camera around here again. Generally, those are port side on all the boats, and this boat has a 700. It's underneath of that step, and the filters are very easy to get to. And the nice thing about that is you can hear it sort of at the nav station when it's working, but you don't hear it throughout the rest of the boat. It's the same thing with the generator. When the generator is on, you sometimes have to look at the gauge to see if it's actually on. You can barely hear it. So it's a good quiet generator. It's a really well balanced motor. Can it be single-handed? Okay, this is what you have to do if you want to single-hand this boat, and Pat, the owner, has. You want this line for the main lock to go aft. So that way you can raise the sail up and lock the main up. The next thing you want to do is, if you're using the reacher, unless you're on autopilot, you might want to bring from that block to here up. The other thing that helps with single handing is a docking. Yep, 2 water tanks, and they're and I'll show you where those are. This is a bow thruster control, and that's very important to have on the boat. And the thing that you do for single handing for docking is you have one line all set up here to be able to throw overboard, and then you have your other line right here, and as you're going down below, you walk off the transom onto the dock, or preferably if it's windy, you throw the lines to somebody on the dock. So if it's really, really windy and the wind's blowing you off the dock, it's nice to have someone on the dock, but you can dock the boat by yourself if you do that little trick. And then you have another line, your forward line, right about here, midship, so you can grab it from the dock. But you want to have 2 lines ready to go. The other trick is the anchor. So the anchor's here midship for weight. So what you want to do for single-handers, you just write me and I'll show you, but there's a thing that you can put here that allows you to throw your fortress over if it's really, really windy. But if it's not windy, you have a remote control that's inside. It's a remote control that loosens this, so you can dump that. The big thing is that you want to get your bridle on it, and that's the black thing right here, because you don't want the chain taking the tension on the boat. It's not so much a big deal when there's no air for a few minutes, but it is if it's windy. Those are the big things for single handing. It's a big boat. You have to question if you want this much room for a single-hander, but you can. And he has. He sailed it up and down to Annapolis in Chesapeake Bay doing that. The water in the boat is actually underneath the floors. There are 2 tanks. Just to compare, the 50, everything is bigger, but on the 50s, the water tank is right there. And in this boat, there are water tanks underneath the floor, and there are holding tanks underneath of the floor. And there's 2 each. Does anyone have any other questions? You like my COVID here? That's just like crazy. You can't get into a barber here. So you guys all set? Do you have any questions? Of course, I can always answer them too in the comments after this thing goes, after it publishes as well, or you can just write me. Okay, guys, we'll see you next time.